and welcome back to a long-delayed episode of the Culture Books podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by...
Sheridan!
Okay, and we are doing the Player of Games, and it is Chapter 2, and I would like to thank everyone who got in touch to check that we hadn't died or just given up on the whole project. But no, here we are, and Chapter 2 is an absolute beast of a chapter, which probably means this is going to be a beast of an episode. But here we go. We're going to give it a go. It is the 3rd of January. It's the new year. And what are we going to do now, Sheridan?
You are going to do a recap in 30 seconds of the book.
Okay.
So far.
So basically I'm just recapping Chapter 1.
Yeah, well, you know, the next recap's going to be super long. You'll be recapping 2 chapters, but
sure.
Over 2/3 of the book.
And how long have I got?
You have 30 seconds?
30 seconds. Okay, count me in.
3, 2, 1, go!
Okay, so the culture is a bunch of super intelligent computers with a huge galactic empire, and they keep a bunch of humans as pets. They found a new civilization in a Magellanic Cloud that is really good at playing a really complicated game, and they find the best game player in the humanoid galaxy, and rev him up and fire him at the Empire of Azad to try and show them who's boss. Done.
I disagree that the computers keep the humans as pets.
Okay.
Well, the narrative is that they're equal.
Equal in what way?
I mean, look, there is obviously the minds and stuff are superior.
Yep.
But the narrative is from mostly the perspective of humanoid.
In this book and the last one, yes.
Oh God, do we get a? Yeah, right, we do. Okay.
But yes, mostly it's from the humanoid perspective, partly because we're incapable of understanding a mind's perspective.
And also, what we do learn in this chapter is that the culture's not about ownership.
Well, the culture doesn't believe in ownership. Well,
yes.
the culture says it doesn't believe in ownership. But there's what the culture says, and there's what the culture is, and there's always a tension between those two things. But I would put as an example that we will never meet in the culture a spaceship that humans are completely in control of.
Yes, but do you ever meet a human that the spaceships are the computers are in control of?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're probably making this episode longer than it needs to be.
Which is already extremely long. Yes. Okay. So, Sheridan, are you ready to try and in 30 seconds recap this enormous chapter?
Yep.
Okay, your time starts in 3, 2, 1...
Gogay's on the limiting factor, going to A to play the game of a game, and it's teaching him how to play Asgard, which is the game. God, I'm only 10 seconds in. No, there's so much more. Anyway, he gets to A and it's formal and just like a really, really messed up place. And then he kind of wins all his rounds and he has like a number of wild, drunken nights with like dick-breathing dwarves and all sorts of crazy stuff. And he That was bad.
Dick-breathing dwarves.
There's a dick-breathing dwarf.
Okay. Cool.
On one of the nights that he goes out with Tsar.
Yes.
I think they're wrestling a woman and a...
Yes.
They call the person a dwarf in the book, so...
Yeah. No, I'm not questioning that they're a dwarf.
And I'm not saying that they're any... This is a super sci-fi book. Anyway, and he thinks it dies and it's underwater and they're like, and Tsar's like, see, look at that black thing. That's his penis. He breathes through it.
I have some issues with that whole scene that we'll get to.
But can I just say, it has one of the funniest lines where one of them says, dick breathing, hey? Sneezing must be a bit awkward. Or something like that.
I'm glad that made you happy. Okay, now just one thing I really like, in the very opening of this chapter, it starts literally saying, still with me, little textual note for you here, and it goes into a discussion of personal pronouns.
Oh, yes. I was like, Piers Morgan, these things are new to our decade of the 21st century, are they? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But annoyingly, though, they don't get to they.
No, I mean, Azad has, given that it has an intermediate gender, has a particularly complex situation with its pronouns. Obviously, Ian M. Banks is saying the culture is well and truly past pronouns, but, we're translating this text from Moraine, the culture's language, into English, so we're just going to have to, deal with it as best we can with our limited, primitive view of the world.
Frustratingly, though, females are on the bottom of the pile in Asgardian culture.
You mean Azadian?
Azadian.
Yeah. No, Thor isn't in this one.
Oh, but the game is
Azad.
Azad. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, you're right. I have mixed two things. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm going to probably do that throughout. Actually.
Yeah. Now I really like this little line saying the message is that it's brains that matter, kids. Gonads are hardly worth making a distinction over. And that's the 1980s progressive view, and here we are in 2022. And we still have gonad-obsessed knuckle-draggers. But, we can dream of something better. So that's good. Now, in this chapter, we've got... He really could have broken it up into 4 chapters easily.
Can I just say, this chapter... Look, at least there is what I call... there must be a literary term for when you put, 4 line breaks in between paragraphs. That happens multiple times, right? So that was at least a way to stop reading. Mm. But when you're doing the audiobook version, because I have a tendency, as people who know, I flick between both. Mm. When you're doing the audiobook version, man, that just goes on and on and on. There is no natural break. Yep. And it's not cool.
Okay, we've got to deal with what we're going to deal with here. But, so you've got Gerge getting to the Magellanic Cloud where the Empire of Azad is, and that's quite a significant bit of...
The journey where he's learning how to play.
And he's on the different ships that are moving him faster and faster and faster to cover the intergalactic distance. Yeah. And that's quite a fun little romp through how the culture works as well.
Yeah.
For the less... I don't know, whatever. Then you've got a significant number of spaces of Gerge playing the game, which is all very Ted Lasso, in that you don't really understand the game. It's a bit like when you watch Ted Lasso. You don't really understand anything about soccer, but you know that, yay, sports, team's winning. Oh no, team's doing badly. Oh yay, team's doing well.
Yeah, that's true.
And, I mean, the game of Azad is obviously completely beyond our comprehension, even on our best days if we had devoted our lives to it. So we're only ever dealing with an abstract of it.
Yes.
But I've got to say, I did feel the thrill.
There's a lot of tension. He builds a lot of tension with a game that you don't know whether someone's winning or losing.
Yeah. And then we sort of get the last bit, which almost felt tacked on, where Gerge is going through to the finals and then spends some time with Azadian high society.
Well, I thought the structure was more first bit when he's on the ships and you're learning about the culture, middle bit where he's playing the first round of the games and is given the idea of Azadian culture.
Yep.
And then end bit where he is told how fully messed up they are. And in the final single player match where so you've got this, he's in the single player zone, game, but also learning how absolutely messed up this, I don't like saying culture or race,
society.
But yes, society is.
I mean, Azad is a very thin metaphor for our own society.
Oh, absolutely.
And it does... It actually gives me chills knowing that Elon Musk loves this book.
Oh, I know. I was thinking that the whole time. Because at first I was like, oh, maybe Elon Musk isn't that bad. Oh my God, Elon Musk is messed up. Does Elon Musk have his own little porn things that he gets access to that no one else does?
Well, we know he used to visit Epstein Island quite a lot.
Oh, God. It's bad.
Yeah. This is kind of one of the things that science fiction does well when it's at its best. Because science fiction can't actually tell us about alien cultures. What science fiction can do is to give us a different way to look at our own culture. Or our own society. Sorry, culture's being the loaded term that it is. I think it's subtle as a sledgehammer, the way he goes about. But Ian M. Banks and his books as Ian Banks, there's always a great deal of anger at the injustices of the world.
Yeah.
And he really loads this in here. There is also an extent to which, and it's an open subtext, the culture's manipulating Gergely, even all through this.
Well, they're both manipulating him. And so
they're both? Who's the both?
The Azadians are as well.
Yes.
Because they're openly manipulating him. The whole last chapter of the chapter is, them basically saying, we are going to make you lose. How do you want to do that? But then while you're even reading that, you're like, but what really do they have in store for him?
There is a point there, and we'll sort of preempt that bit, I guess. The Azadians have figured out a lot about the culture. Certainly their upper echelons have. And one of the things they seem to have figured out from talking to various ambassadors is that the culture is a post-scarcity society where no one has any control over anyone else. And they are then, open control, we're going to get to forms of control. They are trying to offer Gergely the one thing they think they can offer him, which is the chance to inflict pain and suffering on people.
Because the whole time we've been reading these books, I've had my doubts about the culture as a society. Like, I'm like, they don't suffer. I just don't see how they're like. I think they're a bunch of like just kind of a-holes.
Yep.
But reading this chapter, I was like, hang on, like maybe they are really good.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the author's trying to lead you down that path.
Yeah.
And there is a sense of the culture unleashed in this as well, in that the Azadians, the game is their society, and what the culture's trying to present to them with Gergely is, here's some dude, he's not even that good at the game, but he's going to dismantle you people.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of manipulation of Gergely to get him ready for that, and the extent to which he's being manipulated. Like, I would question the whole nightclub scene as to what extent any of the drama that unfolds in that is actually stage managed in advance and is all actors being paid by the culture. You don't know. But the fact that the Azadian society doesn't bring up that he was involved in this wild shootout and violent spree in the nightclub. There's no CCTV. Later in the chapter when they're trying to discredit him and make him look bad, the fact that they don't have access to any of that makes me think that the culture was... Because you don't know for sure just how much influence the culture has in Azadian society. We know they've got the ambassador. We know he's got some people who work for him. He's been set up by someone, you don't know who, and it might well be that was all the culture playing some shadow boxing.
True, but there is a reference when he's with the guy on the island, the elite.
Yeah.
That a number of innocents lost their lives, which could just be a reference to the incident during the game.
Yep.
But it could be a reference to... It
could. But it's left at this point deliberately vague, and that's part of the fun of it. But there's certainly, there are hints shown that Tsar, the culture ambassador, has a lot more going on in his head than he initially is, because he initially comes off as a loose degenerate. And I felt that, particularly as a product of its time, there was a lot of Ford Prefect from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in that character.
Again, I only watched the movie.
Oh, God.
We entered this podcast with me being the sci-fi noob.
Okay, all right. Let's get back to the text a little bit. There is a line right early in the chapter. Points to ponder. Does Gergely really understand what he's done and what might happen to him? Has it even begun to occur to him that he might have been tricked? And does he really know what he's let himself in for? Of course not. That's part of the fun. And this is the unknown narrator. And the extent to which I think everything that happened in the first chapter was pure manipulation by the cabal of minds, and the shadow drama of the orbital mind trying to help him while the nasty gunboat diplomacy is trying to manipulate him. I think they were all in on it. They were trying to make him feel bored with the culture, and then they were winding him up with the promise of this bigger, better game to go and try and play. I don't think there's any actual disagreement amongst the culture minds. I think they were all set up to fire this bizarre human weapon at the Empire of Azad.
Well, they do, when he gets there, they seem to have had it been set up for quite a while, and the different ways in which he is able to play compared to other, like, guests is they've been working on this kind of deal for a while.
Yeah, but they initially give a sense that they don't really care if he wins or loses, and I think that's just their manipulation of him. I think they do care. And although maybe they try this every great cycle, it's every 12 years the Azad plays the big game. Maybe a different culture person was sent out 12 years ago and we're just not told about it. Although I think, now that I think about that, there's enough in the text that if there had been another effort before, the Azadians would have been talking about it.
Is there any relevance to the Regent Emperor? Because that seemed a weird fact to throw in.
Well, in that he's uncertain on the throne?
Yeah.
Okay, because he's never actually won the grand cycle.
It seemed an odd kind of thing to throw into the...
I think it's just creating a sense of the stakes, in that he's, Azadians are trying to present we're all this big united society, but they've actually got someone on the throne who's not fully legitimate. And that's part of why the Azadian society is so big on, he's such a great player, and,
because Peckwell's like, of course he'll win again.
What do you think of Peckwell?
Well, I mean, he's just a bootlicker, isn't he?
Is he? Okay. I liked... there was a lot of people I know in Peckwell, and I think that was deliberate in that, the fact he was... I was at the office and I heard about the incident and I rushed over. He's a guy with other jobs to do as well as babysitting.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Gergely. And I think in terms of humanising Azad, Peckwell's an important... he's a real touch of the mundane.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, let's keep going through the chapter. I did like Gergely hearing about the fact they were using ultraspace, and he was like, I know about hyperspace. Is ultraspace something like that?
That was one of those sci-fi things that I brushed over.
Okay. What did you think about the limiting factor? Murderer class general offence unit.
What did I think about it? Well, I mean, one thing that I'm a bit confused about is why the Asgardians let...
The who?
Azadians. Sorry, I told you I'd do it. I would do it a lot. The Azadians would... Azadians. I've combined them now. I'm like...
Just leave the G out of the middle and we're good. Yep.
Those peeps.
Thems.
Why they kept letting him, Gergely, talk to it.
Well, they don't know he's talking to it when he's in the module.
But isn't that cheat? Well, then isn't that cheating? They must know he's talking to it.
Well, now we get to the nature of cheating in games, which is kind of funny with all the stuff that's been going on in the chess world that we did talk about last episode. Yeah. In that it becomes quite clear as the story goes on that the Azadians are cheating just as desperately hard as they suspect Gergely is. But limiting factor, so it's... I'll just read the description here. The limiting factor was a murderer class general offence unit, number 50017, so that's an idea of how many they'd built, and as such was one of the last built, constructed 716 years early in the closing stages of the Aederan War, when the conflict in space was almost over. In theory, the craft had seen active service, but at no point had it been in any danger. So you've got this veteran, and I would like to point out here, there are people... very well-educated, well-informed people who think that the culture books don't occur in any particular order. And yet we very clearly have a statement here that this is something that happens after Consider Phlebas.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Okay, but you've got this incredibly powerful warship that saw some action at the end of the Aederan War and has been tooling around in search of purpose ever since. Now, Gergay keeps referring to it as, it's so dull. And I just don't believe that a fully fledged culture mind could ever be dull. I think that's just a personality it's choosing to present him with for its own purposes.
Well, I just like how it's like, it was really good at Azard, but it's just like, whatever, this is kind of like a thing I do on the side.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a mind. It's more intelligent than all the humans that ever lived combined.
Mm.
And at the same time, I mean, I do like the idea that he holds back in his games with the ship, and then they show him playing the ship to the Azadians without his knowledge, which he gets very angry about. But then the Azadians are like, oh, well, if this is the best game he's got, then we're fine. And then, obviously they come to regret that assumption. But, okay, so that's, you're not too impressed by Limiting Factor as a character then?
No, I think you probably might have guessed from all this that I generally go for the humanoid characters, unless they're funny droids. Or drones, sorry.
Right, yes.
I mean, I do quite like Fleur Imsaho.
Yes, I was going to say, what do you make of him?
Yeah, I like him. He's funny.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What?
I must say that, well, I'm just going to jump ahead heaps, but when he takes Gergay out to show him
what Azad's really like,
the motivation for that is very odd.
Well, it's because the mind has told him to go and it's time to wind Gergay up for to play for reals. This is part of the continual manipulation of Gergay through the chapter. And also, I mean, Gergay goes on a bit of a journey because he's in a society suddenly where everyone cares about the game. This is very exciting to Gergay because he's used to living in a society where he's a bit of a weirdo for being a game player. Yeah. And now he's the main focus. And he's saying, wow, finally a society that takes game playing as seriously as I do. And then and so the culture then has to reel him back. Maybe now's a good time to talk about the the assertions, where they have to write down their values, because the Azad wants to know what motivates a player so they can analyse how well they do.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought I really liked this whole discussion because Gergay did the kind of thing that so many people in our society do, where they say, oh, I'm not really political. I don't actually have politics. And the cultures, the mind and the drone and, everyone else and the Azadians are saying to him, you are political. You have political values. And he doesn't, because he's lived within all the assumed values of the culture all his life, suddenly having to realise that, hang on, I have a real problem with entrenched disadvantage in a society. I have a problem with your imperialism. I have a problem with your sexism. And you get a lot of people in our society who think they're not political because they've got the,
they don't watch News 24.
Well, it's not even that they don't watch News 24. There's plenty of people who watch News 24 constantly and think they've got one political mindset. But if you were to, say, dump them in Saudi Arabia or Iran, would suddenly realise that a lot of what they just take for granted as being a decent human being is actually highly controversial in other contexts.
Yeah.
And you then have to, questions of would you actually fight and be willing to suffer and to die for things that you've never even realised you actually believe in. And, to some extent, there's always this thing that World War II and science fiction are kind of the same thing. People who never thought of themselves as Jewish suddenly realised that their whole existence was being defined by other people in terms of, who their grandparents were and things like that. And I just thought that was...
What does he say his are, though? I can't remember.
Oh, remember the ship just lodges them for him.
Right.
Yeah, he never actually...
Does it?
No. But I also like the idea that the Azadians do actually care about what people... They want to know what people's values in life are as they try and analyse the games, because they know that the two things are so closely intertwined, not dispersed.
Yeah. So is this the bit? So when this is when they have the conversation about a guilty system not recognizing innocence.
Yes.
Then later, I mean, and this is why the motivation for Fleur Imzaho showing him all the messed up aspects of Azad. Because there's a quote at the end that I'm just failing to pull up right now, but where basically he says that they do recognise innocence, and that the actually really messed up thing about it is they recognise them and they take advantage of them anyway.
Sorry, there's a difference between innocence with a C at the
Sorry,
end.
I did say that it was my COVID.
Yeah, and a person who is innocent.
Yes.
So the guilty system doesn't recognise that anyone is free of sin, but if there is someone that is less sinful, then they really want to mess them up.
No, so I meant innocence with an ENTS.
Yeah.
So I've just pulled it up. So he says, the ship told you a guilty system recognises no innocence. I'd say it does. It recognises the innocence of a young child, for example, and you saw how they treated that. Innocence, it even recognises the sanctity of the body, but only to violate it. Once again, Gergely, it boils down to ownership, possession, about taking and having.
Yeah. Which is getting to the core of Azad. But at that moment, let's bear in mind, Gergely, A, has really come to appreciate the game-playing elements of Azadian society and hasn't really had to engage, because he's only been going to diplomatic dinner parties and playing the game against bishops and judges. So he hasn't been down in the weeds of what the cruelty at the bottom of the system is like. And he's also at a point where he's playing the physical option where, yeah, he might get his knackers chopped off, but they'll grow back. Whereas he's facing an opponent who's going to literally lose their womb.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't know that they have their first ever, child growing in their womb. That's sort of a tragedy that unfolds later. But at the same time, he doesn't want... The nature of the physical bet is that he doesn't actually want to inflict that cruelty on another.
Yes.
And this is where the culture is now having to wind him up, to say, no, do it. Take him down. Be ruthless.
Yeah, but that's actually messed up, because that's the culture going against its own values about not wanting to recognise possession and ownership and cruelty.
What would you have the culture do?
Well, I don't know, but I'm just saying that...
I think, okay, well, I mean, this is where we get to one of the culture is always willing to accept that there are contradictions, and is willing to, the culture is a gleeful player of the trolley car dilemma, right? They'll certainly special circumstances will flick that switch and kill one person in a heartbeat if it means saving 5.
Yeah.
They're not, they don't hesitate in those kind of calculations. So in this case, the Azadians have set up a system with physical cruelty within their game, and the culture, having decided it's playing the game, is not hesitating to inflict its pain on this judge. And also, Banks really lays it on with the trail in that bit where the judge suddenly realises that it's what it's seeing in Gergely's eyes is what it's all the convicts that it sends to death saw in their eyes.
Mm.
The culture is willing to play is literally playing the Azad's game, and is willing to inflict physical cruelty if they want to wager it.
Mm.
But I would say, in terms of moral culpability, the culture didn't put the physical cruelty on the table.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. I would just like to note, going back to the travel to the cloud, there was a line, and I'll just read it out here. So he swam beneath the unreal blackness of space and the hard little light motes of the slowly moving stars, pulling himself through and diving beneath the gently underlit surface of the warm water like a soft inverted image of a ship himself. That's when he's on limiting factor. And that was the prompt I used in the Midjourney AI to create the artwork for this episode. So I just thought, when we're dealing with artificial intelligence as a subject, that was kind of neat. Yeah. Cool. All right, so moving back through to try and move through the chapter. So let's talk a little bit about being on Little Rascal, the plate class GSV. What do you think about life on the GSV?
Well, it sounds pretty fun. Isn't there like 22 million people? I mean, 250 million?
Yeah,
Okay.
like millions and millions.
Millions and millions and millions.
And they're all air racing and there was, there is something about Ian Bax that's written for the enjoyment of 25-year-old men. And, the description of the little trail of visitors to Gergely's room in the course of his stay.
He only says he makes a few friends, though.
A few friends, but a succession of nighttime visitors. Yeah. And what was your thinking about his communications with his friends back on Chiarg?
Look, I just felt like it didn't do much more than just point out that he's not like an a-hole. Like, he obviously cares about people and he has connection with people and he's willing to continue that. He's still a bit of an a-hole through them.
He doesn't respond to anyone.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a bit of an a-hole. But, there's people that like him, that want to talk to him, so it's trying to make you feel like, well, he's not, a completely selfish person.
Yeah, I did think it, his failure to communicate the way they increasingly send you, I'm not sending you any more messages till you send me a decent message. Kind of reminds me before social media killed off email communication. We used to write each other emails a lot more. Or at least I did. I stopped writing people emails when everyone just started looking at each other's Facebook posts all the time.
Well, now you do like the couple of line chat thing or whatever. But it comes back at the end when they say that, I can't remember the name of the person, but got the perfect web-in stricken.
Oh, the girl that he played.
Yeah, and it was almost a bit like, you've been off playing this game that no one in the culture cares about, and someone has done the thing that you've always wanted to do.
Yep. I think that was part of winding him up. I don't even know if that was real.
But it happens although it does happen before the final. Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
because if I was the culture trying to wind him up, I might just make that up and push that out in front of him. Rage mode.
It was kind of a contradiction, though, that at the same time when that was being said in the story, they were also talking about the Azadian girl who didn't make it through to the single-player games. Or woman, I should say.
Yeah, I thought she was a really well-introduced callback in that you only met her once. And then Gergely can't even remember her name, but he's like, just tell me the names of the women who got through to the second round. And they're like, no one got through to the women got through to the second round.
She fully is playing into his ego though, right? By whispering to him you should win, or whatever she says to him.
Yeah, but obviously, she knows how badly the dice are loaded.
Yeah.
And I did think, again, these books get read a lot by young men, and in terms of appealing to a young man, or God help us, an Elon Musk, it was very effective, that bit of explaining structural and institutional disadvantage to a reader who might not have experienced that themselves.
Mm.
Which is always a worthwhile thing.
Yeah, I don't think Elon Musk
took that on board?
No.
Did we talk about in the last episode Grimes' Player of Games video?
I don't know, but I definitely know about it now.
Yeah, it's if you haven't watched it yet, listeners, just YouTube Grimes' Player of Games. It's clearly written about Elon, and he's basically depicted as Sauron except in a sort of a hot pink version of that armor. And there's a lot of stuff about you're too busy trying to get to Mars to care about me and that sort of stuff. But
it's definitely about him, yeah.
Oh, it's definitely about him, and it also does show the importance of this
the book
to Elon Musk. That was the.
It better end well.
We'll see. Now let's get back to our little mate Flair and his fancy dress.
Oh, it was so funny. It was so cute. He's like, I don't want to wear it. I think he overplayed the screeching and the static noise. Because Gergie's like, I cannot hear what you're saying.
Well, but a lot of that is also that they're not meant to speak the culture's language, Moraine, in front of the Azadians because they know that Azadian intelligence is trying to analyse it. And there's a lot... And I like this idea as well, that the culture's language tells a lot about it that they don't particularly want the Azadians to know. But yeah, the poor drone, fancy, dowdy, what it is, rags, worse than that, I'm supposed to make a humming noise and produce static electricity to convince these barbarian dingbats we can't build drones properly. A humming noise, I ask you.
But it seems like it's all a bit pointless because they obviously know a lot more about the culture than the culture thinks or the culture's letting on.
How do you mean?
Well, they clearly know more about the culture because when he's on the island with the elite, like, they know heaps about them.
Yeah, except they still don't even... I mean, imagine if you're the Azadians and you are the top dogs in a whole galaxy.
Yeah, well, it's also a bit like, well, do they even care about the culture?
But they've encountered this other thing, and you know, I mean, they take us through, you know, Gergie reading the, you know, watching the news, and they've discovered another civilization, they're crushing and killing it. So Azad is used to encountering other civilizations and crushing and killing them, and then they've encountered this thing that they can't quite touch. They don't know where its planets are, but they can't comprehend that it's crossing over from another galaxy to them either. So because that would mean it's so much more powerful than them. They've never encountered something more powerful than themselves. You know, and so the Azadians are obviously terrified at the elite level that there's this thing that they're not better than, but they can't quite believe
Obviously
it.
not so terrified, though, that they let a rando come in and play their most important game.
Yeah, but they wanted to see what they could do. That's part of, you know, and it's entirely asymmetrical. I mean, you've played Civilization plenty of times. You know, there's that moment when you encounter another civilization for the first time and you're not sure where you both stand on the pecking order. You know, and then you get a look at their capital and it's full of wonders that you haven't unlocked yet. Yeah. So one bit of foreshadowing. What do you think of Chamliss's present?
Oh, well, I was wondering, yeah, that was a bit... That didn't really go anywhere. I feel like it's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's going somewhere. Yeah, there's some Chekhov's gun with.
There's something going on there.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of shows how careless and callow Gergie is.
Oh yeah, like, you know? Like my lifelong friend left me this bracelet and I didn't even open it.
Yeah, and then when he does open it, it's just like, it looks like an orbital, and then he only realizes later that you know, all the weather patterns have actually changed on the orbital since the last time he looked at it, and he still hasn't asked himself, is it actually a real-time view of Cheark, perhaps, or what exactly it is, or what it's doing. Now, I just want to quickly talk about the labyrinth prison that they fly over in the module. And I love this. The idea is that people who've broken laws are put into the labyrinth, the precise place being determined by the nature of the offence. As well as being a physical maze, it is constructed to be what one might call a moral and behaviouristic labyrinth as well. Its external appearance offers no clues to the internal layout, by the way, that's just for show. The prisoner must make correct responses, act in certain approved ways, or he will get no further, and may move further back. In theory, a perfectly good person can walk free of the labyrinth in a matter of days, while a bad person will never get out. You know, and then saying, you know, it works in that it's an excuse for not giving people a proper trial, and the rich just bribe their way out. So as far as the rulers are concerned, it works great.
Well, and then you contrast it with what Gergely tells... I've forgotten the guy's name, I keep forgetting it, the elite guy on the island. That, you know, in the culture, if you do something wrong, you're put on with, I think they call it a slap drone.
Yes.
And it's just a drone that follows you around and makes sure you don't do anything wrong.
Well, they don't do that wrong thing again. So if you've killed someone, that the slap drone stops you from...
I thought it was anything. Anyway,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it's a form of punishment that doesn't limit your freedom, really.
Well, except, you know, as he describes, it's the social death.
Yeah.
You know, why can't you just go to parties? Well, you could go, but no one would talk to you. Which...
I mean, I know what I'd prefer.
In some ways, that can be an even crueler punishment than...
True. I mean, I guess if you thought you were going to get out of the labyrinth really quick.
Mm.
But the labyrinth doesn't seem fair.
No, but as I say, it's not actually supposed to be. Nothing is. And I did love also in this flyover, then... before you ask our friend what we're passing over now, that's called a shanty town, and it's where the city draws its unskilled labour from. And then he does ask Peckwell where it is. Oh, that is where people who have left the countryside for the bright lights of the big city often end up. Unfortunately, many of them are just loafers. And then Flair im Sahar saying, they've been driven off the land by an unfair property tax system and the opportunistic top-down reorganisation of the agricultural production apparatus.
I did like that. I had that highlighted too.
Yeah, which... just sort of goes. That's a classic science fiction thing where when you see it presented as the outside society, like, oh, hang on, that's something we do too.
Yeah.
And also just the whole idea of why are they poor? Oh, they're lazy.
Yeah.
We do that all the time.
We do it all the time. Yeah.
And having been relatively poor and relatively affluent in our society, you work damn hard when you're poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not lack of work that keeps you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of the Culture National Anthem?
It didn't resonate. Much of a...
Because they played the song for Gergely and he's like, what's going on in this house?
Oh, right, yeah.
So I was like, yeah, it's the song Lick Me Out.
Yes, sorry, I did notice. Yeah. But it wasn't really their national anthem.
No, but...
They thought it was, yeah. Sorry, that's why you confused me.
It'd be a bit like someone humming WAP to, to aliens. I don't know, we don't really have an Earth anthem. I did love this line, I used to think contact was so organised and efficient, and the drone's saying, it's nice to know something works. I do think there is a bit of even keeping Gergely in the dark. I think the culture and contact and special circumstances are working in concert. They're trying to give Gergely an impression that they're not working in concert.
Mm.
Now, one thing we do get to in this chapter is the use of drugs in the culture, particularly through the lens of the Ambassador Tsar keeps offering suggestions about, gland this, gland that, and then it turns out that he's had all his glands ripped out to stop
I feel sorry for him.
Yeah?
It would be pretty messed up if they took your...
pituitary gland out.
Yeah.
Yep. But it really does give a sense that in the culture it is normal to be blitzing on something at any given moment.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought that was obvious in these books.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting sort of to the game itself and the sense of drama through the game. And, I mean, what did you make of the game?
I mean, it's obviously very complex.
Mm.
I mean, it's multi-staged, right? So, you've got to play, a long-term strategy.
Yep.
I'm surprised they weren't a little bit harsher on him in those earlier rounds to try and gang up on him and get rid of him.
Well, they didn't think it was the threat at first.
Yeah.
And so they wanted him to get a little ways in so they could show just how great they were. It was sort of I thought it was reasonably well written. The unfolding sense of panic in the whole imperial bureaucracy that this guy was actually winning. I mean,
the poor priest, he was...
The poor priest, he was a bastard all the way through.
Yeah, but, like, clearly
a bastard and a hypocrite.
Clearly they let him... The Azardians were telling him what to do.
Yep.
And they'd let him get away, and then they were like, oh, he's gone too far.
Mm. Yeah, and also I did also think, having worked in media, the description of the media just falling in line between what the palace wanted the public to be told about the alien was extremely realistic.
But then later in the book, Fleur Imzaho becomes very concerned that Gergely is just, like, reading all of the press about himself when it's good.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, like, goes into this idea that the press is, like, this very sort of, appealing thing when it's working, like, when you're beating it.
Yeah.
Because actually, I've misphrased that, sorry.
Okay. Have another go.
Should I go back?
No, just say.
Because he says, like, the press obviously is against him the whole time.
Yeah.
But then when he's beaten, like he's won the game, and the press is still against him, he sort of gets this sort of weird fixation on, like, oh, they're saying so much bad stuff about me, but it's sort of a bit, like, kind of odd because he's won.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, what kind of... Like, there's something there that I haven't finished the thought fully.
Okay. You let me know when you finish the thought. Now, while they're playing the game, what were your thoughts on the idea of who was cheating and to what extent they were cheating?
Well, I mean, it becomes clear that the game's like an allegory for life, right?
Yep.
In that you think there's these rules, but they don't really exist.
Yeah.
I mean, who within the game on Azard knows what rules don't exist and what does is unclear.
Yeah.
Presumably the more senior game players know, though.
Oh, definitely. I mean, partly because the senior game players have had the advantage of the support of the colleges.
Yeah.
And the extent to which they're blitzed on drugs themselves, trying to enhance their play. I mean, it's definitely worth noting, and Banks would have been thinking about this a lot in the 1970s. The big game where the Americans managed to get Bobby Fischer jacked up over the line to beat the great Russian Grandmaster in Reykjavik. And it quite obviously destroyed Bobby Fischer's minds, the drugs they were pumping into him. So, that was in the 1970s, so only 10 years before this book was written. There'd been clearly this case where very exotic drugs, no one's quite sure exactly what they did to him.
Well, and all sorts of doping in regular, like, sports.
True, but in particular in chess.
Yeah.
So it's interesting they don't... I mean, obviously, at the moment, there's this huge controversy as to whether Neiman had a vibrator up his bum, giving him coded...
I don't think that's a real thing.
No, but who made up that rumour?
Who?
Elon Musk.
Oh, God.
Well, he was the first one to tweet these.
Also, I don't know if a vibrator up your bum's not a drug. It is cheating, but... Anyway, I don't think that... that is a ridiculous rumour.
What coded signals are being sent on it. But the idea that, I mean, at the start, Gergely's feeling a bit guilty. He's like, oh, well, is it actually fair that I'm glanding these drugs? And then the machines are saying to him, no, don't worry about it. Those guys are doing exactly the same. Now, there is a line I liked here where... some of the more sensational releases even carried stories that the alien from the culture was using some sort of supernatural sense or illegal technical device. They're calling me a computer, the drone wailed. And they're calling me a cheat, Gergo said. Life is cruel, as they keep saying here. And then Imperium saying, here they are correct.
I mean, it is definitely, the game reveals the cruelty of their society, though. Because the fact you start to wager limbs, I mean, that is sort of akin to, you know, like people that have to work in coal mines who lose limbs and then get these like ridiculous payouts that, you know, insurance companies have ranked and gone, well, your limb's worth $25,000. And
I think that's more akin to how when people are in high stakes poker games and they're being bid out by someone who's just got more money, and they'll put the house on the line.
Well, yeah, it's that too, but it seemed to be going a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah, but the thing is, something like the physical option is part of entrenching disadvantage, because if you've got all the chips,
then don't need to.
Yeah, whereas the poor schmuck's like, oh no, you can. I mean, he did actually sort of touch on this with damage in Consider Phlebas, the idea that the players who've got less can try and wager more.
Yeah, because they have their like the people they can wager to die, but the people who don't, they wager their own lives.
Mm. So later in the chapter, we get this sense of Gogo's own personal triumph, where he's sort of wavering as to whether he's going to take down this guy. Even his own expectations have been exceeded, and if he worried at all, he worried that some subconscious mechanism would now let him relax a little, having proved so much, come so far, defeated so many. He didn't want that. He wanted to keep going. He was enjoying all this. He wanted to find the measure of himself through this infinitely exploitable, indefinitely demanding game, and he didn't want some weak, frightened part of himself to let him down. He didn't want the Empire to use some unfair way to getting rid of him either. But even that was only half a worry. Let them try to kill him. He had a feckless feeling. Let them try to kill him. He had a reckless feeling of invincibility now. Just don't let them try to disqualify him on some technicality. That would hurt.
Yeah, but that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. But, you know, this is... So it's, you know, it's part of Gergo sort of comes alive through this chapter. You know, he starts it as this bored dilettante who's good at games, and by the end of it, he's angry, and he's actually wanting to destroy these people, and he's keen to humiliate these people. He's been manipulated by the culture to the point that he's actually being transformed.
I don't know. I don't feel like that his anger is as obvious in the text as what you think it is.
Even after he gets shown the taken out for his walking the streets of London moment?
Well, yeah, he just sort of looks away. It's not like he's, like, fuming.
Yeah, but then he goes out and wins the game.
Yeah, but how do you know those things are related? He does also like winning games. Like, that is his personality.
Yeah, but he was wavering as to whether he was going to go through with it because he was deterred by the
physical aspect, yeah.
The physical aspect. Although
but it's a bit stupid, though, because the physical aspect's not even really a threat to him.
No, but the point is, it's the impact of the physical aspect on the other player that they're worried about. He's not worried.
Well, that is true, yes.
Yeah, which is to Gergo's credit, that he's more worried about the cost to his opponent than to himself.
Yeah.
You know, and literally it's at this moment that he gets the signal from Chambliss saying that Olshaps won the full lead.
Yeah, that's true. That is definitely something in that timing.
Yeah. They're making sure he's ready to go. And yeah, I called it the Streets of London moment, and you know, there's that, you know, let me take you by the hand and walk you through the streets of London. And Flarium Saho is definitely... even the fact that they were set up to extricate him from the module without the Azadians knowing that he was zooming off through the night sky. Some work had gone into that. That didn't just happen.
It's a little bit weird. I mean, later, though, in the chapter, Flarium Saho is really concerned that he keeps watching these channels.
Yeah, but I mean... limiting factor is the adults in the room supervising this whole thing. Flair's just an actor who's sort of sent out there to play little roles now and then. And they're definitely they are manipulating Gergely's emotional state very closely, and obviously the extent what he's even seeing on the module screens, they're in control of.
Yeah, true.
Particularly when they start being like, oh, have a look at these snuff channels that the Azadians are running. We don't actually know the Azadians are running snuff channels. They could just be CGIing that stuff up and showing it to him. That's complete headcanon on my part.
That is because the guy on the island basically confirms the theory.
Definitely there's a well, yeah.
Well, not confirms the theory, but confirms that that's happening because he says... the reason that we like laws is because they can be broken and you can have whatever you like here. You can do whatever you want with anybody.
Oh, only if you're at the top of the pyramid.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're little people...
Yeah, but he confirms that they're not fake.
You're right. There isn't the extent to which they basically... This is basically describing Epstein Island, that bit.
Oh, absolutely. It's... Yeah.
With the band having to,
well, even when he says you can have apices or apexies, how would you say
apices,
it? Apices.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the ultimate that you could have, like, abuse them.
Yeah.
That shows that it's not a gendered position, but it's a class position where you get your dominance.
Yes.
Which is why we have Gina fucking Reinhardt. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, women are often the most enthusiastic proponents of the patriarchy if they get their nose in front.
Well, yeah.
Which is why I question the term patriarchy, but let's not get into that argument here. As a descriptor of the unfairness of the world, I agree.
But you only find the term patriarchy offensive because you're a man.
I just think it's more complicated than just gender, as you were saying.
But it's mostly gender.
Sure.
Anyway, yes, let's not get into this.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, we'll just get to the bit where Bermoya, the judge, finally loses the game and, it is real. They know that they're going to lose the child, their first one,
which is kind of a funny thing because that when Gergely's watching all those videos, the moment he turns away is the moment when a woman with an unborn child is being murdered.
Mm.
That's the moment. That was the crime and the torture that was too far for him, and that's when he turns away, and then that happens in the game. Like, it's quite cruel.
Although it's never clear that Gergely knows about that. That's
true, actually.
Internal to Bormoya. But then there's this line, then he knew, and suddenly for the first time in his life he understood what it was for the condemned to look into his eyes. I really liked the I think it was a real highlight of the whole chapter, the game against Bermoya and the way it was written up. This distinguished judge, this cultured, refined. But you're sort of being forced by Azad into, you've got to take put the physical option on the table. I don't know what to. But then the things you do for the system when you're heavily invested in it.
Yeah.
And then they cart you away and rip your gonads out.
Yeah.
Unborn child and all.
Jeffrey Epstein style.
Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, they put him in prison and killed him. I don't feel sorry for him, but just saying he did. Ultimately he was on top of the system, and the system took him. And
yeah, I mean that was sort of competing bits of the system, I guess. I'm not going to cry too hard.
Yeah, it might not have been a very good analogy.
Yeah,
I wasn't feeling. Like I said, I wasn't feeling sorry for him. I actually didn't really feel sorry for
Bermoya.
No.
Yeah, you just thought they were a bastard and part of the whole thing. Interesting. Okay.
Because he was completely. Well, they were completely arrogant.
Yeah.
During the entire thing, they never thought they were going to lose, which was just so ridiculous.
Yeah. So then we finally get to, the island, the estate, the peak of Azadian society.
Which looks pretty nice if you're the person.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe, no, I'm sorry. It's not. I don't think I would feel that great doing that.
I was going to say the band being, having to intricately copulate with each other while they...
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm contemplating getting a house cleaner and I'm already feeling guilty about that.
As you should. I did like the line about the nature of truth in these societies, which includes our society, where Hammond says, "You're free to tell people I've told you this, and free to claim whatever you want after the event. You'll be ridiculed, though, and what I've described will happen anyway. The truth has already been decided."
That was one of the best lines. I was like, the truth has already been decided should be a tattoo.
Yeah, right. Sometimes events get away from it, but often our rulers do, just get together and decide what they want us to believe, and we never know the difference. Now, here's an interesting one I'm going to throw at you. Hammond found the culture's sexual mores even more fascinating. He was at once delighted and outraged that the culture regarded homosexuality, incest, sex-changing, hermaphrodity, and sexual characteristic alteration as just something else people did, like going on a cruise or changing their hairstyle.
Well, so the incest obviously is the one that we all...
What the fuck's Rick doing in that list?
Yeah. But, because, Tsar says that to Gergely too when they're out on one of their nights out, says, not about the incest, but says, "Oh, I can get you anyone you want. They don't really like the man-on-man thing, though."
Mm.
And you're like, that's interesting.
Mm.
Especially in a culture that has 3 sexes.
Yeah.
I think they'd be more open to... But maybe they're less open because...
They've got a system.
They've got a middle sex that they can both get with. I don't know. But yes, that was strange. But...
I guess, when people are living for hundreds of years and changing...
genders
and they don't have familial control through property the way that we're used to, then if a brother and sister or a mother and son want to get it on, is it anyone's business?
Well, look, I feel really weird getting into this discussion.
Without wanting to go all Peter Singer here.
But if there was not the...
It's the power dynamic that makes it wrong.
Well, no, it's not even that. Okay. It's something more... It's something simpler. It's the biological issue that if you keep screwing your sister, you're going to end up with some messed up...
Which the culture's...
deformities and... things going wrong.
In the far future that the culture's depicting, that's just not an issue.
And so if that's not happening, well, does it become so messed up? Look.
It's an interesting question, but I think if you take out the power dynamics and the chance of unwanted pregnancy, then it probably does reduce the need for the taboo, although it's still definitely taboo to us.
Yeah, and I guess that was just Banks's way of differentiating the culture's evolution beyond... what our culture recognises as taboo. Because he has to distinguish it completely from human society.
Yeah.
Earthlings.
Okay, I've just got to the slap drones bit. So Hammond's saying, "But what if someone kills somebody else?" Gergely shrugged. "They're slap droned." This sounds more like it. What does this drone do? Follows you around and makes sure you never do it again. Is that all? What more do you want? Social death? Hammond, you don't get invited to too many parties. But in your culture, can't you gate crash? I suppose so, but nobody had talked to you.
The slap drone's like the very, very evolved version of the ankle bracelet. Yeah. Which, we have a problem with that. We say the ankle bracelet isn't enough. You want to punish, you want to... restrict people's freedom.
I think our desire for punitive justice, I would say most advanced thinkers don't view it as that useful in our society today.
So yes, most advanced thinkers say that it's not useful because there's evidence that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But most advanced thinkers will also say, if that happened to me, I want the punitive, which is, why I'm not the one making the decision. So there's two elements going on there.
Yeah. But I also think that I would make the argument that a civilization like the culture so far in our future would have moved well past the punitive nature of justice.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's sort of a bit unfortunate that he doesn't explore, is how they get past the punitive nature and how they get to the point where they let incest go on.
Yeah. Well, he's allowing us to fill in those things in our own minds.
Yeah, but, there's other things he doesn't let us fill in. He does that. Like, you just leave us to work out the hard stuff ourselves. It's a little unfair.
Now, it actually leaves it till the very last page of this chapter, where Gergely asks about what happened to the woman that he met at the party right at the start. Before they left, Gergely asked the module about the girl he'd met at the Grand Ball months earlier. He couldn't remember her name, but if the module could provide a list of the females who'd survived the first round, he was sure he'd recognise hers. The module got confused, but Flair and Saho told them both to forget it. No women had made it to the second round. It's interesting in terms of narrative structure. They could have used that earlier when they were trying to get him angry. But he's come back from his...
But they can't use it earlier because they don't know if it's importance to him.
No, but I'm just talking in terms of the narrative. He could have asked about it earlier. It could have been written in earlier. It was saved right till the end of this enormous chapter, which could have been a book in its own right.
Yeah, yes, true, you're right. Do you think she comes back? I mean,
No, she's
gone.
She's a disposable character. She doesn't have any other... I don't believe she has another part.
It helps, I guess, perhaps to motivate him to continue to be angry about it. Yeah.
Because, at this point, we have no idea what the hell he's going to do when he gets to the Fire Planet and is playing these meaningless games.
Yeah.
That he
knows.
He has to pretend he's lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely... because he says to... What's his face?
Hammond.
That he's going to... Oh, yeah, sure, I'll play along. I'll do your sound bites where I pretend I'm losing and blah, blah, blah. But he mustn't do that, right? He's not going to do that.
No, he wants to play.
Yeah.
And he's just willing to make whatever deal he can to be allowed to keep playing at the highest level, because he's never going to have another game as intense as what he's playing here.
The thing that is a little frustrating about the book is the whole entire time the stakes for him don't really exist, because they say that the limitless factor can just come and rescue him that. And if that's true...
The most powerful warship in the galaxy is always ready to intervene.
Yeah, but is that really true?
How do you mean?
Well, how do you know the Azadians don't have...
Well, they keep They keep pointing out that the Azadian battle cruisers are hopelessly antiquated compared to the...
Well, then it's kind of annoying, right? Because he doesn't really have any stakes.
This is an interesting argument that we will continue to have as we explore the culture.
Because the whole, that's been the whole point of their game playing, is they have to have stakes for it to mean something.
The stakes are what influence he will have on Azadian society with his gameplay. But the stakes for Gergely are not personally enormously high, because the culture overpowers this society by so many factors that they can... it was well described when they were discussing the physical factor. They were like, we'll teleport you out of here. We'll come roaring in at 1 million times the speed of light. And
but then, as a reader, there's no drama there, really.
You didn't feel any drama through that chapter?
Well, no, I feel the drama, but if he can just get rescued at any point, well, he can just do whatever he wants.
I guess we'll just have to see where we go in the next chapter in terms of building that sense of drama. Do you think we can knock the next chapter over before 3 months pass?
I don't know how long it is. If it's 180 pages and I get COVID and my cat dies in the middle of it, maybe not.
Well, there's only 100 pages in the whole book and there's 2 chapters in that, so they can't be longer than, on average they're 50 pages
We could do another chapter next week.
Who knows? All right. Okay, so what was your favourite ship?
Oh, well, limitless factor.
Limiting factor.
Oh, sorry, limiting factor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, he's a good ship. Definitely a he though, right? Gets described as a he.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, and who's your favourite character?
Zar.
Zar was your favourite, not Flair and Saho?
Yeah, I think Zar in the end, because I just felt so sorry for him.
Okay.
He's just like, I mean, look, you take away all those drug glands, I'd be really unhappy.
Yeah, but he's, hoofing down the finest product of the this galactic empire.
He just wanted someone to party with, and Gergei's like, whatevs. Got my brain drugs going on.
Okay, on that note, we will endeavour to be back before 3 months elapse. Hopefully, I don't think next week's realistic, but
that's true.
Yeah, okay. This is not one of my favourite Ian M. Banks books, but I am actually finding it weirdly enjoying revisiting it. So, particularly, I think I read this chapter 3 times while I was waiting for you to finish it, and there's a lot of depth to enjoy in it.
It's a funny thing. I actually think, in a way, it's a bit more satisfying than Consider Phlebas. Okay. Because there's a lot more nuance and referencing back to things that happened earlier in the book, whereas Consider Phlebas was probably more like space opera.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas this is actually there's a lot of I mean, look, I was like, I'm gonna get that tattooed on me.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of really existential, a lot of deep thinking going on.
Oh, and Azad is a cipher for our own society.
Yeah.
So it's fun seeing ourselves reflected back with the external view of the culture. Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, thank you folks for listening. We really do appreciate that you're still with us. Yes. And we will be back as soon as we can with, what's the next episode, Sharon?
Oh, I have to shut my computer. Terminate something, Maximus, something.
No, Machina. Ex Machina. So
I feel there's been a lot of movies with that title.
Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Deus Ex Machina is the machinery of God, which is a criticism of a lazy ending to a story. And this is saying this is going to be, instead of the machinery of God, it's the machinery of machines, which makes one think that the culture minds are going to make themselves known.
Ooh.
But this is only chapter 3. We still have chapter 4 to go.
We do. I feel like chapter 4 might be one of those 10 pages though that he does.
We'll see how we go. I mean, I haven't read this book in over 20 years. So this is I've got a vague idea of the outline of the story, but I'm pretty much in the dark as you are. So
cool.
Yeah. Alrighty. We'll be back soon.
Thanks, folks.